You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Joining me now for Locked On Gators is Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting insider and the host of Locked On Seminoles, which is very relevant to today's talking point. But before we talk about LJ McCray, LinkedIn is the college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On Podcast Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. And before we talk about LJ's recruitment and his commitment that's happening today, can we get a refresher for the listeners of just what kind of player LJ is?
Very rare. 6'5", 6'6", 270 or so is my guess based on meeting him and shaking his bear paw. He's a big dude. He's a kid though, at his size. When I saw him warming up, I was at a game a few weeks ago. I had no idea how nimble he was, how well he could bend. And keep in mind, again, I'm guessing 270-ish, 275. He's playing a stand-up outside linebacker, come after the quarterback only kind of role. There are guys in the NFL much smaller than that at the same spot, 245 to 255. He's a high school player. It was very, very shocking. So that's the first thing. Second, though, again, the way he bends, the way he changes direction, despite his length, despite his bulk, is really rare. The final thing that's really unique about him, and I still don't understand why this is completely the case, although Mainland High School where he attends has a lot of talent, this is the first year that LJ has concentrated on playing D-line or outside line, or anything up front. Prior, he would play it some, but during the week, he would only practice it a little bit, and he was primarily a tight end till this year. So his ceiling is really high because he's just learning the position. There's some technique that he uses, and he has a few good moves. But imagine how talented this young man will be in year 2, year 3, year 4 of a college program, weights, conditioning, all the different things that go with it, and just the skill that you get with college coaching. So his upside is tremendous, and that's why his offer list is also tremendous.
Yeah, you mentioned there's guys that are in the NFL. Brian Burns is 25 years old. He's been in the NFL for a bit. He's a dominant player too. And he's like 245, 250. So yeah, this is LJ McCray is a pretty big dude. How has he kind of improved, I guess? Because he's been a blue chip talent for a while. He's been someone with eyes on him for a while. So, and I feel like we've talked about him before as someone who's made considerable progress from last season to this season. So what have we really seen there from him in his development?
Play to play, seeing him go after the quarterback when you're that big and they know where you're at on every play at the high school level. They're like, okay, don't run at this guy. Let's not be stupid. He has to chase plays down from behind, and it's a lot of effort. 250 plus pound men do not like wearing a helmet and running. I can attest for that across the board. He still chases guys down from behind that weigh 170, 180 at running back, quarterbacks and stuff. And he's a menace. So seeing that effort on every play, it's not something, I'm not just talking about LJ, but across the board of 4 and 5 stars, it's iffy. A lot of high school kids take plays off, and a big bulk of them, quite honestly. He's not really that way. That's the first thing that I noticed. And also, he had a couple of really unique moves. He's talked to somebody and learned a few different things. Ghost hand, making a guy miss and stuff like that. The way he dips at the last second was really nice. I mean, he'll still just try to run you over too. Bull rush, that is a large man. So, I mean, he's not going to run through every 320-pound offensive tackle. That's not a good idea. But his repertoire has grown quite a bit since last year. I think it's just going to keep getting bigger because he's a real smart kid, very articulate. He won't have any time in the program, wherever it ends up being, which we'll talk about in a second, getting more moves and adding to it. You can tell that he really enjoys this. So I'm really excited about his advancement to where it's at now from last year and where it can be as well.
Yeah, and when you talk about just his advancement, where do you think he slots in at the college level? Because like you meant, like 270s Florida has a stand-up edge rusher in Princely Monumental, and he plays at 255, or at least he's listed at 255. And then you look at our defensive end, is Tyreek Sapp, and he plays at 275. He's hand in the dirt kind of player. So where do you think maybe LJ slots in long term?
I think he's a versatile kid, and I don't think he has a position. And that's what's fun. I know like Miami thinks he could be a great 3-tech that you can move around, but they like his speed and athleticism going against a guard on 3rd and 7. That's kind of my synopsis of what I've heard. There's a little conjecture on my part, but that's just an example. Obviously, with his athleticism, 3rd down, you could play him at strong side end. Not many right tackles or whatever are going to be able to handle that. And you could do different games with him too. In a 3-man line, he can just shoot a gap and take a beeline for the quarterback. I don't think he's going to have one spot. And again, he's an articulate kid. He will take to his craft. He's shown that, but he just enjoys talking football just from being around him. That's a kid you're going to move around, man. That's one of the reasons these coaching staffs, it's Miami, Florida State, Auburn, and Georgia. They all like him a lot, and they all think he has a high upside. There's no reason to pigeonhole him at any one spot.
If you're watching or listening and you haven't worn Bird Dogs yet, I don't know what kind of life choices you're making. I'll just say that. Bird Dogs are easily the most comfortable shorts that I've ever worn and are the most versatile shorts that I've ever worn. Their stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you a truly sculpted look. And you know how we do it here. It's skies out, thighs out, baby. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or enter promo code lockedoncollege for a free water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or promo code lockedoncollege for a free water bottle. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege and get on your way to being your best self. Whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, being a Florida Gators fan, if you're like me, dealing with being a Gators and Giants and Mets and Knicks fan, life is rough with sports, okay? Therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so that you can move forward with confidence and excitement, and it's entirely online. BetterHelp is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, so let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege. And now we get to the fun part. Like you mentioned, there's Florida State, Georgia, Miami, Auburn. What has LJ's recruitment been like to this point? As he's also one of the last really remaining completely uncommitted blue chip players for this 2024 class, where signing day's 2 months away, early signing day?
About as unpredictable as it gets. Until early fall, I didn't even know what his top 5 was. And most kids are already committed. For whatever reason, it was just slower for him and his family to figure out. And I'm guessing part of that is because he played tight end and he was getting offers, but like teams weren't necessarily sure how they were going to use him. Now, at least they have more of an idea. It's not a complete picture because it's still just the beginning of the senior year. And it's the first year he's committed to D-line and outside linebacker. But okay, now we can see this athleticism. We can at least project play after play, seeing the film, seeing him live. Like the game I was at, Florida was there and Miami was there to watch him. And every game he has, there's going to be an SEC, ACC school there. I think that it's a pretty unique situation because to now, Florida was talked about the most probably, and it's the closest school, so that makes sense. Florida State was kind of an afterthought, but they got the last official visit. They're allegedly trending for whatever that's worth. And then there's schools like Auburn that were kind of laid into the picture too that he really liked, and it may have surprised some of the people in the recruiting service industry. Okay, we didn't think about Auburn here. Georgia's, that's duh. If you're a defensive lineman and you're not interested in Georgia, if they're interested in you, I'm concerned about you because they develop. Then Miami, they got Jason Taylor recruiting you. That's got to be appealing. I'm sure that's understandable whether you like Miami or not. So, and he was one of the guys there at the game that I was at. There's no doubt that he has a lot of different storylines coming into it, and it is really unique.
Yeah, I'd imagine that every school is just like Florida State's like, hey, look at what Jared Verse is doing with us, and Miami's just we got that gold jacket, Jason Taylor, and Georgia's like, look at everything we've done. Just so I get it, like there's a lot going on, but how difficult has it been to even try and predict this commitment? Because like we were talking about off air and like I mean countless discussions have been had between at least myself and other people who cover other schools where it's like everybody feels good. There's no school that's in this top 5 that's like we're not getting them. Just everybody you look at Florida, just Florida feels good. Georgia feels good. Florida State feels good. Auburn feels good. Everyone feels great about LJ McCray's commitment, but of course, he can only play for one unless he's JT Daniels and he's going to go to every school on the planet. But for now, LJ McCray, you can commit to one school. So just how difficult or even fun of a commitment has this been where it's like we really have no clue what's about to happen.
This is, I'm trying to think how many people I've either spoken directly with, college coaches included, the most difficult one in the country this year. I don't even know if there's a number 2. And it's not because the kid's like, he's a great kid, super interview, very engaging. He just legitimately has no freaking idea where he's going the day that I interviewed him. Like he had no idea. And he's like, look, I have. And I kind of felt bad for him because it was frustrating for him. So he said that his parents, which usually help narrow it down, this puts it in perspective. Out of the 5, usually a mom or dad would be like, you know, I don't really like that school. They gave him the green light on all 5. So that didn't help. You know, he's just reporting the news here and he's like, you know, they said it's all 5 are good with us. And I'm like, okay, well, you're on your own, buddy. That's where you're at now. Florida's always been the easiest pick because it's close. He's been to Gainesville, 5 times, something like that in the last year. So it probably maybe I don't know.
10.
Because sometimes these visits don't get discussed. Sometimes kids just get in a car and go, and it's not. And he's an hour and 15 minutes, something like that, from the swamp, depending on traffic and everything. I would say Florida, Georgia, Florida State are the most likely. But now that I say that, we'll be talking about him committing to Auburn on Monday or something.
Ohio State.
Well, if that happens, we've got another conversation altogether. I will be very disappointed in this, and I will just give up. But I don't think anybody would be wise to make any decision because even if he has a lean right now, that doesn't mean it doesn't change because that's happened a lot this year. There's NIL possibilities, and he's been open that it's hard. He could be shifting back and forth between 2 or 3 schools at this moment as we're doing this podcast. So why would I feel confident in picking any school? There's no logic in it. So I don't get to say this very often because I usually kind of know where kids are going. I have no freaking idea where LJ McCray is going. And I'm not going to sit here and lie like some other people do for clicks. That's garbage. He could go any of the 5, and I would not be shocked.
Yeah, that's like I've always been like, oh, like I'll never spoil a kid's commitment or anything. Like even if I do find out beforehand, this is a fun one because I can openly say I've heard Florida feels good, but so has every other school. So very much looking forward to seeing wherever this goes. This is, for me, one of the most fun recruitments that we've had this cycle, just because genuinely no idea whatsoever. But thank you so much, Brian. This is Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting insider and the host of Locked On Seminoles, who one of us could be having another episode today about LJ McCray. Who's to say? We've got no clue, but thank you so much, Brian. Catch Brian all throughout the Locked On College channel and every day with Locked On Seminoles.